What's going on, guys? Vulkan here. So after the amount of comments and DMs that I received over the past few days for Torchlight Infinite, I figured today I'd go over what it is, how it works, and really just give you an overview of the game itself. So Torchlight Infinite is currently in closed beta testing on mobile only. However, they have planned from the beginning to launch on consoles and PC as well. So luckily, this isn't just like a last-minute port. It's something that they've wanted to do from the jump, which hopefully means it'll work a lot better than Diablo Immortals. So before we dive into this, I did want to mention that this game is in beta, which means that the game will most likely change between now and launch. So things that we talk about in here might be removed, updated, or overhauled. This includes the in-game shop as well, which we will get to, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there is an asterisk next to everything we're talking about today. So to get started, let's talk about classes. So Torchlight Infinite comes with 5 different classes to choose from. First up is the Berserker. Now, Berserker is as it sounds. It's a melee bruiser that builds up rage. This rage can be unleashed to increase your damage. Now, the interesting thing here is that the rage is something you can activate. So as you go through and you deal damage, you're swinging your swords, you're doing your stuff, you're going to build up a rage bar. Once the rage bar hits 100, you can tap on it, you'll activate rage mode, and you'll deal increased damage. So it doesn't automatically turn on, so you can save it for when you need it most. Now next up is the Divine Shot, which fills kind of the gunner/archer class role. Now the class trait here revolves around ammo specialization, which works as buffs. So as you use projectile skills, they're going to consume ammo, which then enhances your skills altogether. So I'm going to admit, this is the class I've had the least amount of exposure with, right? I'm not going to pretend to be a master of the Divine Shot. Truly, it didn't interest me as much as the other ones, so I just spent almost no time on it. But for those of you who really like gunners, the Divine Shot seems to be the one you'd want to go with. So next up, we have the Frostfire. So this is our mage caster of the group. Now, her class trait is a pendulum system that kind of operates between fire and cold damage. So as you use cold or fire skills, they're going to fill a meter. Now, once that meter is full, you're going to unleash a cold or fire AoE pulse, which is going to deal damage around you. Then you're going to switch to the opposite form. So as you use fire skills, you'll deal big fire AoE. As you deal cold skills, you're going to deal a cold AoE, and you're going to switch back and forth between those two. Now, next up is the Space-Time Witness, which is another caster, but while the Frostfire mostly uses fire and cold, the Witness specializes in erosion damage, which afflicts enemies with a damage over time debuff called Wilt. Now, this is my favorite class so far. I mean, this class I really enjoy. So the hero trait that comes with the Witness is a clone of yourself called a Space-Time Illusion. Now, this creates an AoE around your illusion, and as long as you stay near your illusion and you're within that AoE, you're going to get significant damage buffs, increased cast speed, and mana regen. So it's like a permanent bloodlust that you can summon, and once you level it up enough, it'll be able to follow you around. Now, lastly is Moto, which is the commander class. So this dwarf is all about summons and minions. So if you're like a zookeeper person, or you like managing a small armada, then this is the class for you. It's incredibly powerful. Honestly, it stole the show when it first dropped into this last closed beta because it was so powerful. They had to nerf it a little bit, but it's still a very strong class. So the hero trait for the commander, to no one's surprise, is that the commander gives large buffs to minions. So those are all of your classes, guys, right? They're classic Torchlight. They take a common theme like the mage, and they give it a little spin to kind of make it like fun and quirky to break up the monotony a little bit. So like I mentioned, I spent most of my time with the Space-Time Witness, but I also have quite a few hours on the Berserker, the Frostfire, and the Commander. Really, I was trying to get like a well-rounded impression of the game and see how each class operates, since each one will unlock things a little bit differently as you go. Like I said about Space-Time Witness, I saw a lot of like erosion-based skills and things like that, whereas on the Commander or the Berserker, you're going to see a lot of minion skills or physical-based skills. So with the classes out of the way, I want to talk about my favorite system in the game, skills, hands down. So in my opinion, Torchlight Infinite beat Path of Exile to the punch for renovating their skill gem system. We know there's a big skill gem overhaul coming with Path of Exile 2. Torchlight, I think, just kind of jumped ahead of them a little bit. So In Infinite, you're going to unlock skills as you pass milestones, and you're going to earn them from quests. You can then socket these skills in the skill window so that you can use them on your character. Now, each time you level up, you're going to slowly earn a resource called energy, which allows you to socket even more skills or more support skills for each active skill. So for instance, let's take a look at Thunderbolt Overload. So Thunderbolt Overload is a skill that's going to send out a lightning projectile that's going to bounce and deal damage to enemies. But we can also add in some support skills to give it a little bit more juice. We have things like Efficient Cast, which reduces our mana cost and increases our cast speed. We have Electric Overload, which increases our lightning damage and causes crits to buff our skill damage for 2 seconds. And then lastly, we have just a flat increased lightning damage buff. But if you look really close at the wheel, you can see that I have room for 2 more support skills that I still haven't even unlocked yet. And this can be done for each of my 5 active skills and my 3 passive skills. So passive skills are where things can get a little wild. You can add things like Curse on Hit, Cast on Crit, Cast on Low HP, as well as just flat increased mana regen, or even summoning like a spirit minion to help you out and deal some extra damage and pull aggro. All of these things are possible with passive skills. And the crazy thing is everything can be modified. So if you don't like the way you have your Thunderbolt Overload set up, you can go to the skill vendor, you can buy some additional skill gems, and then you can throw them out there to see if that one works. It's really all up to you. And I mentioned this resource earlier called energy. So once you reach a certain point in the story, gear will start dropping with energy boosts that are going to help you unlock even more skill slots faster. So there are lots of ways you can funnel energy into either a single skill, or you can spread it out across multiple skills. So I mean, that's the skill system, right? And it was the first thing that sold me on Torchlight Infinite because I just loved all of the customization that came with it, and the fact it was so flexible compared to other action RPGs on the market. But the crazy thing is, the build customization doesn't stop with the skill system. You also have talent trees, the pact system, hero trait unlocks, and gear. So let's start with the talent trees. So in Torchlight Infinite, you're going to have containers to choose from once you reach a point where you unlock the talent trees. I can't remember if it's level 10 or if it's level 5. It's very, very, very early. But you have some containers to choose from. You have the God of Might, the Goddess of Hunting, the Goddess of Knowledge, the God of War, the Goddess of Darkness, and the God of Machines. And in each one of these, you have 4 talent trees, all with their own identity and things that they specialize in. So for instance, you have the Blade Runner tree under the Goddess of Hunting. This one has tons of nodes that give extra boost to lightning damage, attack speed, and like crit and things like that, while the Soulbender tree under the Goddess of Darkness gives boost to erosion and reserved mana costs. So picking the right tree for the build you want is going to be critical, but the thing is, you don't have to just pick one. You're going to be able to select up to 3 trees to spend your points in. That way you can really kind of take advantage of what each tree gives you. Plus, you don't have to feel like you have to spend your points on nodes you don't want just to advance the tree. So simply spend them on another tree and make sure you have all of the things that you need. So one other thing, as you spend points in each tree, you're going to unlock large passive boosts. Like if we look again at the Blade Runner tree, I unlocked a passive skill called Transition, which gives my lightning skills a huge critical chance and damage boost. And these are easily changed. So you have 3 that you can choose from. You pick one, you try it out, you don't really like it, you can go back and choose a different one instead. So there's just a lot of flexibility, a lot of customization, which I really, really liked. And the thing is, all of these are different in each tree, right? That's gonna help kind of solidify the identity each tree has. Some are better than others depending on your play style, but you can also go through and preview them to make sure you're investing the points in the tree that you want. So those are the talent trees. Next thing let's talk about are the hero traits. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about each class and their starting hero trait. So as you level up, you're gonna unlock more functionality for your trait to make it even more powerful. So for example, let's take a look at my Space-Time Witness. So his hero trait is that he summons a space-time illusion, a clone, that gives buffs if I stand in its AoE. Well, we can also soup that up a little bit. So at level 15, that clone can now use my basic attack on enemies. So extra damage, it'll also follow me around and again, help deal extra damage, even pull aggro sometimes. Then at level 32, I get to choose between 2 new traits. one that gives me increased cast speed and spell damage, and the other is going to reduce the attack and cast speed of enemies that are struck by my basic attack and my illusion's basic attack. And this goes all the way to level 80. But the thing is, that's not all. We also have 2 other hero trait categories that are listed that aren't quite added to the beta yet. So I'm assuming we'll be able to use these trait trees to specialize in certain playstyles. For now, all we have is a space-time illusion, but the others might bring something else to the table. So next, I want to talk about gear. This is going to be incredibly short, and then we'll move into Pact and the cash shop before talking a little bit about Endgame. So in terms of gear, there really isn't a lot to say. So you're looking at a typical action RPG with the usual rarities of items that you can equip to your character. So there are legendaries in the game, and while they can be powerful in terms of their stats, I've yet to see one that really kind of blows me away or wows me. I want like things like unique, something that's going to change the way I play the game, because right now they aren't just like only stat sticks, but the few effects I have seen are pretty weak. Like, you're immune to frost now. Like, yeah, that's really powerful and that's going to help for certain maps and, you know, things like that, but it's not like, wow, that's really cool and I can build around that. There isn't a lot of those from what I've seen, and to me, this is easily the weakest part of Torchlight Infinite. So here's an example of a legendary. It has some great stats, and I love the benefits it brings to the table, but each one is similar to this. Lots of stats, but nothing really crazy. I want like a Headhunter from Path of Exile, things that can be game-breaking with the right support and the right build. Hopefully we'll see these things later in the game, but for right now, it's pretty mediocre, and I really think they need to spend some time focusing on adding more worthwhile loot. Okay, so that's gear. Let's move into pack spirits, aka pets, and then the shop. So just to get this out of the way, right? Because I know people are going to ask. Torchlight Infinite does have an in-game shop. You can still spend real money on it. We don't know what the cost of anything is. We don't know how the purchasing process works. We don't know how any of that works because it's all turned off right now. The shop itself has weapon skins, gear skins, teleport, like portal skins, but it also has stash tabs, inventory tabs, and something called a revival token. Now, this doesn't mean you can't revive. It just means you can resurrect without losing any experience. And from my experience, I have no revival tokens, and I think it dropped me by like 5% or something like that. It wasn't a ton at level 50 or 60, but as you get close to 100, I can see it being a little bit more impactful. Now, all of this can be purchased with real money, but like I said, the process isn't there. Or you can use an in-game currency known as Jagged Primacryst. Now, you can earn these through achievements, merits, which is kind of like a secondary achievement type thing, and then the battle pass. So if you want to spend money to buy them, you certainly can, or you can play a little bit and then unlock them using the in-game currency. Now, I'm not sure how concrete the pricing of each item is, but I was able to purchase a few stash tabs after playing for like a couple hours, and I've never had to buy them again because it was just enough space for me. Now, I doubt it's going to stay this way, but for now, this is just what I've experienced, so I'm relaying it to you guys. So now let's talk about the other thing that the Primacryst can buy, and that's packed spirits. Now, I'm going to call them pets because it's easier to call them that, but these are pets that have passive boosts and effects you can equip into something called your packed ring, your packed system. Now, these provide benefits like increased critical hit damage, boosting your drop chance, increasing your mana regen, but they're also pets that you can summon to pick up loot for you, and they'll follow you around, so it's also a visual thing. So how do you get these things? Well, it's a gacha system. You spend 10 crystals to pull 10 spirits that range from rare, epic, and legendary status, with legendary pull rates being 2% with a pity system that kicks in at 50 pulls to double your percentage until you get one. But what I do want to focus on is the difference between legendary pets and rare pets. So this whole thing is pretty slim, right? For instance, this rare pet I have is giving me nodes that increase my mana regen, my energy shields, but also giving me huge damage increases, like 20% increased damage. And I've gotten 3 or 4 of this exact same one, so it's not like it's overly rare. Meanwhile, my legendary pet is giving me increased attack and cast speed, mana regen, and increased dot damage, with its main node giving me a chance to, quote, reap on ailments applied, which, by the way, reap, basically, when this triggers, it's going to deal damage equal to 2 seconds of the most powerful dot that you have on the target, so it's a big damage spike. So what I'm trying to say is that I was expecting this system to be the way that like whales could gain all of their power, but from what I see, this really doesn't give you a huge edge like you see in Diablo Immortal with legendary gems. Instead, this is more which one fits into your build best, and you don't necessarily have to have it in order to clear things. It's not like the crux of your min-max or the thing that's going to make or break your build. Instead, it's just a supplementary thing. But like I said towards the beginning, and I did want to reiterate this is all closed beta, so it's definitely subject to change. They could crank up the impact these things have on your build. They could reduce them down even more. It's really up to them. Now, the other thing you can spend, if you don't want to spend those little crystals or whatever on pets, you can also spend those crystals to pull costumes. So you can go and spend those crystals instead. You could purchase 10 costume pulls. You have weapon skins, you have shield skins, you have, I mean, it's just skins. It's skins for days in this thing. Okay, so before we wrap this stuff up, I want to touch on gameplay and what you can actually do in the game right now, and then move into Endgame a little bit. So about half the story is in the game with cutscenes and boss battles. It's incredibly enjoyable. They're working on adding Chapter 3 into the next beta right now. I've had more than enough fun in terms of just playing through the game and experiencing what they have so far. But I will say after Chapter 2 and you get into Chapter 3, well, supposedly Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, it's just clearing maps. So you're literally just clearing a map, killing the boss, clearing the map, killing the boss. And that's sort of how they're progressing players through the story that should be there until you get to a point where you can actually do Endgame. So you might have to go through like 15 or 20 maps, just clearing them in order to get to Endgame. So if you download it, that's kind of what you're going to run into. Now, in terms of Endgame, let's talk about this really quick because I think people are either going to really like it or really hate it. So Endgame has something called the Nether Realm, and you can dive into this. It's great. It's basically Path of Exile maps. So you fire up a map, you add in some modifiers that you want to, which are going to, you know, increase monster difficulty, increase clear difficulty, and then you also get better rewards. However, once you've cleared enough maps, you can also challenge the boss of that realm for some loot in this kind of epic arena boss battle. These were really, really cool. I had to go through and do, I think it was like 15 maps, remember correctly, on one of them, and then I got to challenge the boss, and he spanked me like 2 or 3 times. Then I was able to go in there and kill him, but it was a really cool experience. So overall, I mean, I don't have hours and hours and hours into Endgame. I spent more of my time in early game experiencing all the classes and making builds and stuff like that. But what I have experienced in terms of Endgame has been really, really fun. And I think it's going to be a fun mode that a lot of people will enjoy. But if you're somebody who's burned out on PoE maps, it might be fun for a little while, but then eventually you might taper off and want to do something different. But the last thing I will mention outside of that is that the game will also have seasons. And I feel like these are going to be a hybrid between Diablo 3 seasons and Leagues from Path of Exile, because you're going to have some different kind of mechanics and some different changes that are added into the story and to the end game to keep things fresh. It's not going to be like completely different, like a brand new vendor, or, you know, when they overhaul the Atlas or anything like that in Path of Exile. But it does add something fun. So right now, the current season is called Dark Surge, and this allows you to essentially summon like a big pack of elites and mini bosses that you can fight. So as you go through and you're clearing levels and you're killing enemies, you're going to fill up a gauge. Once that gauge is full, you can tap on it and it'll instantly summon a bunch of enemies for you to kill, and they have an increased chance to drop really good loot. So it's just really cool to go out and farm, and as you clear more of those hordes, as you use that Dark Surge button more and more and more, the chance at you getting a better drop is going to continue increasing until you finish the map, finish the level. So anyway, guys, if you haven't noticed, Torchlight Infinite has taken a lot of inspiration from PoE and then added sort of the Torchlight twist to it, just like Torchlight 2 did with Diablo. But guys, I mean, all in all, I am having an absolute blast with the game so far. It feels much closer to an actual ARPG that just gives players tons of build options. The art style might not be for everyone. I tend to love it. I love stylized art. But the thing is, I feel much better spending time in this game than I do other games, especially other mobile games, right? So I hope this helped give a little insight into what Torchlight Infinite is. I'm very excited for the upcoming release and to see what PC and console looks like. Mobile's pretty tight, the controls are nice, it runs really well. I don't have any issues with it on my Pixel 6 Pro. But right now, you know, I'm still a PC gamer, I'm still a console gamer. I want to have that controller or my mouse and keyboard over a touchscreen. So anyway, I'm gonna have a small series kind of going through all of the Endgame builds. The devs gave me access to kind of test out some Endgame stuff. So I'm gonna do a spotlight on those. So look forward to those in the future. But I wanna hear from you guys. What do you guys think about Torchlight Infinite so far? And how does it stack up to Diablo Immortal and some of the other action RPGs that you might have played on mobile? Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.